Hi everybody. I don't really know what the etiquette is with this. I don't know whether you're meant to introduce yourself every time, but quite frankly it feels rude not to. So I'm Steph, I'm an artist. Your eyes do not deceive you. That is a dog sitting on my windowsill and that is Bandit. Let's hope he doesn't bark. Anyway, thanks for pressing play, thanks for tuning in. Today should be quite a quick tutorial. Well, I'm hoping quite a quick tutorial. It does depend on how much I waffle and I can go on for quite some time. So let's keep our fingers crossed that I don't. Yes, so today we are going to be doing a really quick, really basic, I don't really want to call it a hack because it's not a hack, but a really quick, easy way of creating a water droplet effect on a surface. So yeah, let's get started. Right, let's get crack-a-lacking. Right, quick sip of tea. Helps me think, settle my brain, otherwise, blah. Oh, and break my tea. Right, so here is our, let me just check that that's in the camera. Yeah, it is. Right, so here's our example here. And I haven't got a photograph of a water droplet on a surface because I am a terrible photographer. So I don't have an image that I own myself, and I didn't want to steal one and get done for copyright. However, we all know the popular search engine, and we can type that in and get our own examples that we can use from. What I have done is I have done a little pencil drawing. I find this is quite a good way of kind of clarifying my brain about where the light hits, where the dark is. Just gives you a nice clear view of what we're trying to achieve. And it's a really good idea. If you ever get confused about what you're painting or drawing, just go to the side, do a quick little sketch of it, and it kind of like tink, 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 all falls into place. Anyway, I digress, I waffle. So, what we are using today, we need some watercolour paper, normal cold press, 300 gram, your bog standard. Use scraps because this isn't part of a composition, it is just us practicing today and trying out a technique. So scraps of watercolour paper. It does have to be watercolour paper because otherwise, yeah, you won't be able to get the effect. But yeah, any scraps you've got put my teeth back in, offcuts are fine. I am using watercolour paint out of a tube today, Windsor Newton in olive green. I've already got it in my palette there. But whatever you've got available to you is absolutely fine. If you only have the palettes, again, that's absolutely fine as well. Colour-wise, it doesn't really matter. I'm just using green today because I thought water droplet on a leaf. So that's it. But it will work any which way. It's nice and simple. 2 pots of water, one for washing our brushes and one for mixing our paint. And large paintbrush. We're not really painting today. So yeah, any old paintbrush you've got will be absolutely fine. I'm using a nice large one so I get a nice good coverage of paint. And finally, a cotton bud. Recyclable, please, if you can. But yeah, a cotton bud. That, I think, is it. Right, let us begin. So I'm going to grab some watercolour paper. I'm just using it out of my pad. So yeah, as you can see, it's Dahlia and Rowley, 300 gram. And where you will find is, see here, on this particular one, is it will say what it is and says cold press knot, and it is your bog standard, what everybody thinks watercolour paper is, the wavy stuff. Right, let's stick that down. I am not going to tape it down today or stretch it or anything like that. We're not using enough paint or water or anything like that to warrant really doing it. But if you want to, you can, but yeah, I'm not going to bother. So I'm going to pick up my paintbrush. Now, the pressure point with this is how wet the paper is and how much paint you've got. It's kind of a bit of a judging act. So we will see how we get on. Right, so I'm just picking up some of my paint. So this is paint that I've left in my palette, so I'm just reactivating it. There we go, you can see. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint it on there. Really hope this is in the middle of the screen. Right, you want a decent amount of paint, obviously, because you want to be able to see the difference. Now, again, this is like something that you would pop in your sketchbook or in your little file of like techniques, samples and stuff like this. We're not actually creating a picture today. We are just practicing a technique. So that's what we're going to do. Right, I am going to actually grab some, luckily I had it next to me because I'm not very organised, some tissue. This is always really handy to have by your side if you're using watercolour paints. And so I'm just going to dry my brush off a bit, and I'm just going to take off some of the water. So you can see, I would call that mildly moist. I know some people are offended by that word, but I would call that mildly moist. You don't want it saturated, but you want to be able to move it. Let's stick our brush in there. Now, let's hope this worked, because yesterday when I was practicing this, and I've done this loads and loads of times, I couldn't get it right for anything. So let's pray now, guys. So literally all I'm going to do, you've got to be a bit careful here, is I'm going to dip this down head first and bring up. Now, can you see how the tip of the Q-tip, or cotton bud, whatever you want to call it, has literally just taken some of the paint away. Now we are going to leave that, we're not going to touch that at all. What we need to do now is let it dry. So we're just going to leave it to dry completely. So probably about 30 minutes-ish, and I will see you back here. Hi guys, you would not believe how many takes I've done this to try and get this bit right. For some reason, my teeth keep falling out and I can't seem to get it right, and my brain is going mad. So I'm going to roll with whatever happens in this, so don't blame me. Right, so welcome back. You should have your little sample here and it should be completely dry. If you see that if I rub my fingers over it, nothing happens to it. We've got our two bits of reference, the ones that I did yesterday and our little pencil sketch of it. And if you've got like a photograph of a water droplet, anything like that, anything you've got, have that around you. Right, you can see now all we are left with is a void in our patch of paint. And so we need to now create a surface that looks raised from that and also glistening like a water droplet does. Now, this is a small water droplet, so we don't have to go into masses of detail, and I'm not going to go into the technical whys and wheres for. We just need to make sure that we've got light hitting it in the right place and shade hitting it in the right place. So how I'm going to do that is actually not with paint, I'm actually going to use pencils. So here I have got some normal colouring pencils, Caran Dash, they're my favourite ones. So they are your normal colour pencils, they're not all soluble or anything like this, but I've also got here, which you might want to use, it's entirely up to you, watercolour pencils. These are Faber and Castell, and they've got art grip on them. I don't use the watercolour pencils very often, but if you like them, that's entirely up to you. Some people are a little bit funny about mixing mediums. You sort of think, oh, I'm painting in watercolour, so therefore I've got to stay painting in watercolour. Or I'm drawing with colour pencils, so therefore I only draw with colour pencils. But what that actually does sometimes is kind of limit what we can and can't do, because some mediums are amazing at doing one thing, but really difficult at doing another thing. So we can actually kind of mix and match them. And I find colour pencils are brilliant when it comes to mixing them with watercolours. I mix them with watercolours quite often. You will probably know that sometimes with watercolours, because they're a bit looser, that it can be difficult to get crisp edges. And if we are creating a water droplet, we actually do want quite a crisp edge. And so I'm going to use colour pencils for that. I'm going to move them out of the way because they're just going to get in my way. And I'm going to use these ones. So what we want to do first of all is check the colour, because we don't want to use a colour that isn't similar to what we've already put down. Because this is a sample, we can do that directly on this piece of paper. Obviously, if you were doing this within a piece of work, you'd want to do it on a scrap bit of paper. But so we can use our pencil there and just give us an idea whether or not it's a similar colour to what we've got in there. As you can see, both of them are darker, but we do actually need both of them to be darker in this case. But the tone is similar, so that is going to work for us. I'm actually going to pick up a slightly lighter one. This is olive grey, it says in there, but it looks more green to me, but that's what it's called, olive grey. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a look here, and we're going to recreate this here. So what we want to do is on the outside of our circle, our void, we want to create a little bit of shading. So first of all, what I'm going to do is outline it, just one half. So if we look across here, so actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw across here so you can see. So one half of it. So this half here, we are going to shade darker on the outside of our circle. Now, I'm creating quite a hard line to begin with, and then I am blending it out. Now we want to be uber careful. So can you see there? Like I am using the lightest touch possible. But when it comes to the actual edge there, I'm creating quite a hard edge and blending out. And when I say I'm using a light touch, what I mean is I'm actually not putting the pencil down very hard at all. Right, there we go. That'll do now. Now we're going to look at the other half of our water droplet sample here. So now you can see that the shading is actually on the inside of our void of our circle. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to create a hard edge. Very gently start creating shading within that. Now we don't want to go too crazy because we're working on such a small, like literally that is about maybe 2-3 millimeters in diameter. So we want to be so careful, go careful. You can always add more, you can't take it off. And what I would suggest doing is doing a couple of these so you can really practice the technique, because a lot of this is about feel. It's not about, oh, there's a definitive point where you stop. A lot of it is about feel. So I'm just gonna, there we go. Can you see how that's starting to stand up there? Yeah, just add a bit more hardness around there. And how I blend is, so I am doing very small circles like this with the point of my pencil. You want really sharp pencil. I'm a big fan of sharp pencils. Look, it stopped raining, the lights come out. Now, what I'm also going to do is we can actually create a lighter surface still than what we've got by, again, using our coloured pencils. So this time I am actually picking up the watercolour one. Now, the temptation is, if you are drawing light and it's a coloured piece of work, the temptation is to use white. I would say avoid white if you can. What white does is it doesn't lighten a colour. It kind of almost makes it look chalky and dusty. You're actually far better using a very pale yellow, particularly when you're using green, or a lighter version of whatever colour you've done. So if you've used if you have painted in a dark purple, use a light purple, for instance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a yellow here, and I'm just going to lighten that edge. You won't see huge amounts of difference, and you can actually blend that in with the darker. There we go. And then just again, just crisp up that edge a little bit and the inside. There we go. And there you have it. There is our really super, really quick water droplet in watercolours. You can then transfer that, use that on any painting that you're doing, whether it's a surface of a flower, a leaf, wood, whatever. You can use that really easy, simple technique to get that effect on there. And obviously you can change the shape of it. You know, if you've got it dripping or anything like that, that's something that you can try out yourself. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's made sense, because I felt like my brain has been a bit like woo-woo. So yeah, let me know how you got on. Like, follow, subscribe, send me messages, send me pictures. I want to see how you're all getting on, and any requests, hit me up. See you later. Over and out.